Buck Super Bowl 55 champ Shaq Barrett coming at you live for NSPN Next Gen Sports. Go like and follow NSPN for total coverage of all team and combat sports, live shows, plus exclusive player interviews and unprecedented sports content creation.
Aren't you loving life in Tampa Bay? Nothing like being defending Super Bowl champs, Stanley Cup champions, American League champions. This is Outkick. Join me every Sunday morning at 10. Let's talk our teams in the hottest sports market in the country. Never too early to talk Buccaneers or check in on all the teams in Tampa Bay. It will be your best hour of sports. The Outkick Show, powered by Guerrilla Marketing. Sunday mornings at 10 on 102.5 The Bone. Sports media has evolved. Introducing NSPN Next Gen Sports, your number one source for all team and combat sports. Live shows, breaking news, esports tournaments, and interactive sports content like never before. Like and follow NSPN on our Facebook page for your chance at this month's fan giveaway contest. And tune in every Sunday at noon for exclusive video access to my Outkick Show interview. NSPN Next Gen Sports. Outkick here. I have to tell you about my amazing pampered experience at Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. First of all, I love what she did with my hair, but it's the entire experience that truly sets her apart. You walk in and chances are she's playing your favorite music because she is. She pours you your favorite adult beverage because she is. It's gone from haircut to a truly relaxing time only at Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. Haircuts, men and women, full spa treatments, hair color. Get it all with Daniela. Check her out on Instagram at Daniela LaCorey or book her on the Booksy app at ladybarberdaniela.booksy.com. Tell her how Keck sent you and get $10 off your first service, plus neck and shoulder massage. Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. Outkick here for my friends at Family Lawn, Pest, Handyman, and Housekeeping. I'm all about saving money and saving time, especially when it comes to maintaining my home. These people are 4-in-1. One provider for my lawn, pest, handyman, and housekeeping. I don't have to call 4 different companies, receive 4 different estimates, have 4 different strangers come into my home and write 4 different checks. I simply call Roger and Paula at Family Lawn and Pest. Sign up for a year and leave the honeydews to them. Get a free estimate. Call 813-526-8111. That's 813-526-8111. Tell them Al Keck sent you and get $250 off your first year or 20% off your first month. It's Family Lawn and Pest and so much more. Medical marijuana made easy. See if you pre-qualify for your Florida medical marijuana card free of charge, 100% risk, obligation, and judgment-free with Fast Track Cannabis Clinics of America. You're talking Tampa Bay's #1 choice for compassionate care with business professionals. Discreetly begin your road to relief by dialing 813-358-CARD or visit www.mycannabiscard.com. That's 813-358-2273. And make sure to tell them that Al Keck sent you for $30 off new patient enrollment. Ask about military and senior discounts. Fast Track Cannabis Clinics of America. With uncertainty at an all-time high, securing what matters most has never been more important for your home or your office. Prevent disaster and make life easier. Try a security and home automation system from Alarm Engineers, Inc., Tampa's trusted leader for more than 30 years. State-of-the-art security systems, award-winning monitoring, and now full-spectrum smart home solutions. Alarm Engineers, Inc. has everything your home and office could possibly need and will work with any budget. Book a free security or smart home consultation today. Call 813-948-4000. That's 813-948-4000. And get your first month free by telling them Al Keck sent you. Alarm Engineers, Inc.
Hey, Stan Arthur here for the I Love St. Pete Facebook group. If you're a business owner looking to connect with tens of thousands of potential new local customers, you owe it to yourself to get enrolled in our Key Tag Rewards program. Since 2019, we've signed up more than 200 local merchants. Sponsor opportunities are available too, such as our group banner ad and even your own custom key tags. Just go to stpetekeytag.com, get enrolled, and get ready to get busy. stpetekeytag.com.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another edition of the evolution of Sports Talk Television here. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about, and so proud to be a part of this new platform, Next Gen Sports Network, and of course on I Love St. Pete. So it's good to be home here with this family. And of course, how do we start off the Sports Web? With your Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. On tonight's show, I'll have my Lightning insider, Mr. Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment. We'll have Dave Mishkin, Lightning play-by-play man for Lightning Radio. And then at 9:30, we will have Denis Phillips of ABC Action News. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get him on. My Lightning insider himself. I'm working him to the bone here on this show. Mr. Travis Failey, Rocket Sports and Entertainment. Welcome to the Evolution. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Having a little bit of a rough hair day, but I have to tell you, I'm really excited about having Dave on in the next few minutes. It's going to be a great call. We've got some great questions for Dave coming up. Obviously, he's been the radio play-by-play announcer for now 3 Stanley Cup championships with your Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to talk a little bit about the boat parade, some upcoming craziness with the Seattle Kraken, and boy, Pete, you know it's great to celebrate championships, but hockey is a business, and it's we got a business going on right now with once again with the Seattle Kraken expansion draft. A lot of maybe some faces going to be changing on this team, but you know with them not putting Ryan McDonough out there, I tell you. You know, back to the front wins cups, baby. Back to the front wins cups. You keep that top 4 defenseman with Cernak, McDonough, obviously Sergachev and Hedman. We can fill in some spots if they're able to keep Jan Rutu, you know, at maybe 1.3, 1.5, keep him under contract. That's 5 of 6, you know, Stanley Cup defensemen we got. Now we just got to fill in that other spot with maybe a Cal Foote if he doesn't get taken by, once again, the Seattle Kraken. But you know, they got a lot of players on this team to choose from, and hey, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting the way they go after the players that are out there, because there's some big names, some big names out there. But hey, I think we should get Dave on the phone, get him on here, because people would rather listen to Dave than listen to me. That's
no, not necessarily here. You're a Lightning insider, Mr. Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment on this, and it's not a brand new network. It's a brand new network for us here. The Next Gen Sports Network. How you doing, Dave Mishkin of Lightning Radio? This is Peter Blake of the Sports Web, live here on I Love St. Pete, and of course, the Next Gen Sports Network. Welcome to the Evolution, and thanks a lot for coming on here tonight. We got Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment, and Dave, you got to start this out. How are you feeling right now back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
Well, looking forward to a couple of months off, guys. It's going to be a short off season, but you sign up for that when you can go all the way to the end and, be a part of another tremendous ride. So, look, it's hard enough to win one Stanley Cup. To do it in back-to-back years in this salary cap era it's not unprecedented because the Penguins did it in 2016 and 2017, but it's extremely difficult. And the Lightning and their fan base should be, really proud of the accomplishment to win not just last year, but in back-to-back years.
What do you take out of this season? I mean, you look and you talk and you're around the team all the time and, playing through injuries and just getting through it, and Vasilevsky not winning the Vezina, and national media kind of saying, you know what, the Lightning can't do it again. They had an advantage in the bubble. I mean, it really tells you the moxie of this team, if you will, Dave, with all these players playing through injury and all the adverse situations during the season and, of course, during the postseason.
Well, I think it says a lot about just the mentality of the hockey player, because it wasn't just the Lightning. I mean, a lot of teams had players playing through injury, and I think it's part of the culture of the sport. But certainly to have a championship team, you usually see that there are players who are sacrificing and playing through pain and discomfort and injury to be a part of this and to try and help their team. So, look, I think a lot of the outside noise, the Lightning don't really focus on any of that. But their trajectory included a number of years of playoff heartbreak. I mean, they got to the Stanley Cup final and lost in 2015. They got to the Eastern Conference final and lost in 2016. They got to the Eastern Conference final and lost in 2018. They had a record-tying regular season 62 wins in 2018-19 and got swept in the first round. I think all of those separate experiences for the core group really helped them, in a weird way, discover what it took to get to the next level and to take that next step. And they learned those lessons well. And, they modified their game somewhat. They became maybe a little less risk averse in terms of how they approached, playing games. It was okay to win a game 2-1 or 3-1. You didn't need to win a game 6-1 if you were up 2-1 or 3-1. You didn't need more offense. It was more about making sure the other team didn't score. I think we really saw that firsthand in their two playoff runs in 2020 and this past playoff run in 2021. And sometimes the only way you learn that lesson is by getting close and losing and discovering that there's something more that you need to do. I think what we saw this year especially was a seasoned veteran team that understood what it took to win. And there's no other explanation for how good they were after losses. I mean, they haven't lost back-to-back games in either of these last two playoff runs. And some of that is grit and determination and a hunger to win and a hatred of losing. I think some of it, too, is born from kind of the veteran playoff-tested experience that they went through in those years that didn't result in a Stanley Cup championship.
And we're on the evolution of sports talk television, the Sports Web with Dave Mishkin, Lightning play-by-play announcer for Lightning Radio, one of my favorites. And I tell you right now, Dave, when I'm in the car and I can't watch the game, you do an absolutely superb job of, it's so difficult to be a play-by-play announcer on the radio because you have to paint this picture and you get me into it. So definitely thanks a lot for coming on the Sports Web. Travis Failey, my Lightning insider from Rocket Sports and Entertainment, definitely has a question for you. Go ahead, Travis.
Hey, Dave, once again, I just want to say thank you for coming on tonight. You've been a big supporter of Rocket Sports since the inception about 14 years ago, when you've been with us hand in hand. I want to ask you a question about your relationship with the godfather of Tampa Bay Lightning hockey and Phil Esposito. How has that developed throughout the years? And you guys are like peanut butter and jelly in the radio booth, man. You guys are just fantastic. And like Peter was saying, you guys both paint a beautiful picture of what's going on the ice through our radio and through our ears. So how's your relationship with Phil, Ben, and how's it developed throughout the years?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for the kind words, guys. I do appreciate it. Phil off the air is very similar to Phil on the air, and I think that's what makes him so effective, for lack of a better word, and so enjoyable to listen to as an analyst, because he really isn't concerned about how he's supposed to sound. He just speaks his mind. And I think, the cachet that he has, he's able to do that. And not every analyst is in that position as one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of the game and a Hall of Famer. So, you ask about my relationship, like it's very easy to do games with him. And I think a lot of the way that we converse on the air is similar to how we converse off the air and vice versa. So look, we're coming up on 20 years doing games together. So I think certainly we have a lot more familiarity now than we did in that first year. But I think even the first year, the first couple of years, we had a real ease of calling games together. I think that as the years have gone by, we tend to see the game the same way. And, we may disagree on the edges about, how a player might be performing or what's happening in a game. But generally, we're kind of in simpatico, right? And I think some of that is that we've watched a lot of hockey together over the years. So I feel very privileged and fortunate to have had the opportunity to call games with him. But more than that, get to know him and call him a friend.
Well, it's interesting. It's like Phil calls the game from a color perspective, like the guy on the couch does. He keeps telling the team, shoot the puck, and how is that official missing that penalty? It's like Phil relates to the common guy, the guy who has some hockey knowledge, sitting on the couch screaming at the TV. So I think we can relate a little bit to Phil. We just don't have that statue out front of the stadium.
Well, and also he can see things on the ice and remember, when he was playing, and understand, like, this is where you need to be on the ice to have the best opportunity to score. And this is what you need to do in this particular situation. So, yeah, I think that he follows the game enthusiastically like a fan might, but there is also a difference that, he knows the game as well as anybody who has played the game, really, and understands goal scoring as well as anybody who has ever laced up a pair of skates in an NHL game.
Yeah, and I tell you right now, you've covered this team, like you said, 20 years. Where does the Stanley Cup rank, in your opinion? Is this the best team in Lightning history? Is that just me saying that because of the moment? Where do you rank this Stanley Cup with the other two?
Well, it's hard to say one team is better than the other or others, because they were all special and unique in their own way. And to win a Stanley Cup is such an incredible accomplishment and so difficult. And so the Cup runs were similar in some ways and different in other ways. The 2004 team did face elimination 3 separate times. That 2004 team, I think, was not expected as much as the teams the last 2 years to go deep, whereas the teams the last 2 years did have that history before of deep playoff runs and needed to kind of get the monkey off their back, if you will. The team last year faced a lot of overtime games, and did very, very well in those overtime games. The team this year did not have nearly as many overtime games and went 0-4, if you can believe it, in overtime games. This year's team, both last year's team and this year's team, never kind of put themselves in a position where they were in real trouble in a series. Now, having said that, the Lightning this year did have a Game 7 against the Islanders, but that was the only time that in either of the 2 years that the Lightning faced elimination, which is different than that 2004 team. So they always put themselves in a good spot fairly early in the series. If they didn't win the first game, they made sure that they didn't fall behind too badly in the series. Like if they lost the first game, they usually won the second game and then took the lead in the series after that. And so they helped themselves by putting themselves in an advantageous position. But they did it, and this is true about all three of the championship teams, they did it against incredibly difficult competition. Like to win a Stanley Cup, you really need to beat the best of the best.
Right.
And you're beating some of the best teams in the league, and you're beating some of the teams that happen to be playing the best. So like Montreal this year was not necessarily one of the best teams in the league during the regular season, but there's no question that of the teams that were in the playoffs, they were playing as well as any other team to beat Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vegas and get to the Stanley Cup final. So that is no small feat. And for the Lightning to do it and face elimination only once in the last 2 years, and to not lose consecutive games in back-to-back playoff years speaks volumes. But I think if you were to put a gun to my head, I would still have a hard time saying, one cup run is more impressive than the other two.
Fair enough.
Let me ask you this, Dave, sort of on the same wavelength, because Pete sort of stole my thunder a little bit on that. Do you have, out of the three calls, Stanley Cup winning calls, do you have a favorite out of the three that you've made?
No. I mean, I don't know. Is that like picking your favorite kid? I mean, I don't know if I should look at it that way. I've always believed that, I try and be in the moment. And I think for all three, like if you're talking about the clinching moment, I've tried to be in the moment. But I've also tried to be in the moment at dramatic moments, whether it's, a game-winning goal in overtime or a huge save at a critical time. And that's certainly one of the philosophies that I've tried to adhere to during the time that I've called play-by-play. The other is that, I tend to try and stay in the puck as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you talked about painting a picture, I do believe that is a big priority for me. I mean, some other broadcasters might feel a little differently. There's something wrong with that. Like if you're not in the puck 100% of the time or 95% of the time, but that's a choice that I made. So, when I started, I wanted to stay in the puck as much as possible to paint a picture. And I wanted to kind of be in the moment when something exciting happened. I'm a team announcer. I'm not calling these games nationally with no dog in the hunt, right? Like,
right.
I'm the Lightning's broadcaster broadcasting to Lightning fans. And I always enjoyed team announcers that weren't shy about showing emotion and getting excited when something good happened for the team that they were representing. And I've tried to adopt that philosophy during the calls that I've made. And part of that is, allowing yourself to be in the moment and feel the excitement and emotion and passion of this game.
Yeah, well,
I like this one a little bit, Dave. I don't know if you can hear this, but I think I like this one the best. Hold tight. I think that was my favorite, Dave. I got goosebumps from 2004. I was in the stands for that particular game, and and for this one recently, and I will never forget that. That call just resonates through my house right now. I'll never forget it, and you're a big part of that team, Dave. So I want to say thank you for that. I'll never forget that. It was a very special moment in the history of this franchise.
Well, thank you. As the broadcaster, you can't really dictate what happens. You're just along for the ride.
Right.
Sometimes it's a long ride. Sometimes it's an extremely short ride in the playoffs. And sometimes there's no playoff ride. And you can't choose that. You're just there to describe what is happening. But it's certainly a thrill when the team that you're representing does have one of these long playoff runs that culminates in a championship.
Dave, is there ever a moment you look back and you say, you know what, maybe I could have said this differently? Because I always go back to like Joe Buck and he's calling, the 63rd home run. And some people say, how can I call this? Is there ever like a moment during the Stanley Cup where you kind of rehearse it, or basically like you always do? Is it just organic? It just comes off in that emotion. Is there ever a moment that you go back and say, I could have said that differently, or maybe I was too excited about that? You ever look back at that kind of stuff?
Well, look, I make mistakes like everybody, and it's a fast game, and you're not really asking about that, but I'm answering it.
Oh yeah.
In a way that I'm gonna circle back to your question, and so like if I muff a call, like I'm not thrilled about it, but it happens, and I think that I have reached the point after doing so many games. I understand that sometimes it's just bound to happen, and it's okay. Like it's okay if I misidentified a player or I couldn't see how a puck went in. And generally I have a mea culpa on the air. I say, I missed that, or sometimes I don't even have to say I missed it. And you can just ride right past it. And I know that I missed it, but maybe the fans who are listening aren't aware of it. And that doesn't make me happy, but I don't think that I go back and say, boy, I really wish I could have done that better, because I'm doing the best that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody makes mistakes, and I'm human just like everybody else. I know you kind of asked more about like these calls at these dramatic, memorable moments. And the reason why I said that is that, even when I make a mistake, I try not to go back and beat myself up over it,
mm-hmm.
or hold myself to some kind of standard of perfection that is impossible to meet. So what happens when you don't make a mistake? These aren't mistakes. These are just, signature dramatic moments. And I think it's wasted energy to say, boy, I really wish I could have done that differently. That's the way that I did it. And like I said, I tried to be in the moment, and I don't think anyone can accuse me of not being in the moment for any of, whether it's winning a Stanley Cup and calling that particular, end of game moment,
mm-hmm.
or any other big moment that might happen. But you asked about, like, do I think about what I'm going to say ahead of time? I try not to do that.
Okay.
In part because you never know what is going to happen, let's say at the end of a game. It may be in overtime. It may be 8-0, right? Like, and even these 3 end of game situations that were the end of the games that led to the Lightning winning the Stanley Cup, like the one you just played.
Right.
There's a final shot there from McGinley. Like if I'm thinking about, I have this call that I've scripted, first of all, I would probably mess that up, because I would be thinking about, what am I supposed to say here? Like, you have to stay on the action, because until the horn goes, something might happen. And, in 2 of the 3 clinching games, they were 1-goal games. So, what if Ginla scores there? And I'm so concerned about what I'm going to say at the end of the game. So that's one example. The one that we just had, Yanni Gord clears it, it's down the ice, but Petrie takes a final shot there. Now, look, it's like 175 feet down the ice. Is it at all even a slim possibility that puck is going to go in? Probably not. What if it does? Right? Like, I have to stay with what is happening on the ice until the final horn goes off, which may affect kind of what you're thinking. If you're thinking about what I'm going to say, then maybe your attention is diverted from what is happening on the ice. And then the other one, which was 2-0, the 2020 Cup clinching game, Barclay Goodrow has an empty net there. They actually missed the empty net. And if I'm thinking, the end of the game is here and the Lightning have won, what if he scores into the empty net? The game is not over. It's 3-0 with like 2 seconds left or something.
Yeah.
And there's a face-off at center ice. So, like, that's my long-winded way of saying that not only do I try and be in the moment as far as the emotion, I try and be in the moment as far as what is happening in front of me, and not think about something that like, I don't try and script anything ahead of time, is what I'm trying to say, because I think if I did, it might adversely affect how I'm calling the end of a game.
I think that was that kick save by Hobby Bullen with 7 seconds left on the clock in 2004 Stanley Cup. I think that's what you're referencing as far as the Ginla shot. So, Dave, just a big question. Will you get the opportunity to have the cup for a day this year?
That is a good question. I've not had a day with the Cup previously, and that's okay. But we'll see. I have no idea. I'm on a need-to-know basis on that front.
You spoke about Barclay Goodrow. Of course, the Lightning make a trade yesterday to the New York Rangers. What kind of loss is that going to be for this team? And the future of this team is very unsettled, of course, for the cap situation. Just talk about Goodrow and his impact on this team, or not being on this team now.
Well, his impact was very significant. I mean, he was as big a part of the championship run these last 2 years as anyone.
Yeah.
And look, he has earned the right to get a big contract, which reports are that the Rangers are going to offer him a fairly substantial contract, both in terms of the dollars, but especially the term. I mean, the reports are he's going to get 6 years from the Rangers. So he's earned that security through his play. So the reality is the Lightning were not going to be in a position to offer him anything close to that based on their cap situation. But there's no question that, you know, his departure leaves a big hole to fill. And that is going to be one of the challenges the Lightning are going to be facing this upcoming season. And it's not just Goodrow. They're losing a player to Seattle later this week, and the expectation is they're going to have to move out additional salary as well. So that's where you rely on your drafting and developing, and some of the younger players that got some opportunity this past year to play will be counted on to do more. And some of the players who played regularly last year will also be asked to do more. And that's how you try and offset the departures of really significant pieces of your team. But the reality is that, you know, not having Goodrow on the team is a big loss. And, you know, assuming they can't re-sign Blake Coleman or David Savard and whoever they lose to Seattle, and if they have to move out another contract or two, depending on how all this unfolds, those are all going to be significant losses too. But if the Lightning are going to look to three-peat, and I know that they have made that a priority, then they're going to have to rely on players within the organization, unless they bring somebody from the outside in, and that would be contingent on what kind of dollars they have available after they become cap compliant. But if not, they're going to have to rely on the players that they have to do more and to try and fill the holes left by the guys who left.
I have a feeling they're going to lose Yanni Gourde. To me, he's the heart, the hustle, the muscle. You know, just the guy that everybody wants on their team. He does it all. He takes punches in the face and turns his back. And then when he finds the time, he drops the glove. So I do think Seattle might take. That's just my logical guess, or what educated guess, I guess you can say, about who the Kraken might take. I mean, they do have plenty of options on this Lightning club, and I'd hate to lose Yanni because once again, he's the energizer bunny on this team. But you know, I was talking to Pete earlier, and they allowed to keep Ryan McDonough, and to me, to be able to keep those four top defensemen on this club, you know, back to front wins cups, in my opinion. I just coined that. I think I'm going to make a T-shirt about that. But you know, you still got Vasilevsky in your top four defensemen, and a bunch of guys that can score. So I like their chances to fill in some holes and do it. But how special was that Yale Bulldogs Frozen Four championship for you a few years back?
Yeah, that's going back to 2013, but that was great. You know, when I was going to school there, and I cut my teeth broadcasting hockey, doing their games as a college student on the college radio station, the team was not very good. The hockey was good, like it was Division I hockey, but the team was not a top team, and they kind of eked into the playoffs a couple of years there and went out early. So it was great to see that the program reached really like a high level elite status, and they held it there for a number of years. I would say they've dipped a little bit in recent years, but you know, they have a good program, and it was great to see them actually win the national title in 2013. That was terrific.
Real quick, we'll finish off with this. And we got Dave Mishkin of Lightning Radio, play-by-play announcer extraordinaire, unbelievable. I think he's the best, in my opinion. I don't care if you think I'm biased or not. We're here on the Sports Web, the evolution of sports talk television. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Mr. Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment. Doc Emrick, what does he mean to you as a hockey broadcaster? Go ahead and say how you feel about him, and how much of a loss is it to the NHL broadcasting forum to lose a guy like that to retirement?
Well, so we had a year without him, and it was certainly different not having him call the games deep in the playoffs. So Doc Emmerich is a tremendous broadcaster, retired, but still is a tremendous broadcaster, and probably as good as anybody that I can think of in terms of the way he used descriptive words to call a game.
Mm-hmm.
And he had just had an incredible vocabulary, but not only had a vocabulary that was broad and expansive, but knew the right word to use at every turn. And there are a lot of verbs that you use when you're calling a hockey game, because there are a lot of different ways the puck is played, right? It can be cleared, it can be chipped, it can be dumped, it can be slapped, it can be wristed. And it seemed like Doc always knew the right verb to use and had a vast array of ways of describing the action. And I know I'm kind of getting into the weeds here, but as a fellow broadcaster, I always appreciated his ability to do that. In addition to all the other things that, he did really well, like, he identified the players and kept up with the play and infused emotion into it and kept it exciting. And it was just so solid as a broadcaster. But having said all of that about him, and as tremendous of a broadcaster as he was an even better person. Just such a gracious man, so kind and thoughtful, and never a bad word to say about anybody. So I really enjoyed having the opportunity to get to know him over the last decades now, really, and I wish him the best in retirement.
Dave, he brought up one word, and that was skittering. I don't think I've ever heard the term skittering before in my life, and you're absolutely correct about his approachability and the kindness. As a young journalist and a young photographer, I approached him one day, and he took 5-10 minutes, and he just talked to me, not about the game, but about life in general. And he's like you and Phil. You guys are approachable, and that means a lot to not only the average guy, but the guy just starting out in sports media. And I want to thank you personally once again for coming on the show tonight and being a huge supporter of us and being there for us all these years, Dave. So I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Travis. Take care, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Dave Mishkin of Lightning Radio, play-by-play announcer. Thanks a lot for your time here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television, all right?
All right, guys. Have a good night.
There you go. Good stuff there. I mean, honestly, he puts it out there about Doc Emmerich, about the experience with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't know what more you want here on the Next Gen Sports Network, but that's what you got. Final thoughts here, because we got Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News coming up here. Mr. Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment.
Well, Pete, it's going to be an interesting week. Like I said, we talked about the expansion draft. I mean, we could be losing Alex Gorm, we could be losing Yanni Gord, or they might even go into a different direction and go after maybe a Ross Colton, who obviously had the Stanley Cup winning goal, probably the biggest moment of the young man's life. And, they also have Cal Foote, who's a young defenseman that would probably move up to play that sixth defenseman role next year on this team. So going to be an interesting Wednesday. Will the Kraken take Carey Price? There's a lot of guys out there. I know Ovechkin's an unrestricted free agent, but he wants to re-sign with Washington. Would be interesting to see if they ended up taking him. And, you're talking about Barclay Goodrow potentially signing that long-term deal with the Rangers. What happens if the Kraken come in and swoop him up, and then you swoop up Yanni Gord, and then you go out and sign Coleman? You can have that third line all starting for the new expansion team, Seattle Kraken. So Wednesday's going to be interesting, and hope to see you later on in the week. And, hey, what's coming right around the corner, Peter Blake? Right around the corner. Buccaneer football and the NFL kicking right off, baby. It's coming. It's coming soon. And then what happens, Pete? We got next season coming right around the corner, too, of Tampa Bay Lightning going for a three-peat. You heard it, three-peat.
Yes.
I don't have to pay Pat Riley for saying that.
Three-peat, and, of course, their preseason game announced today in Orlando versus the stinking Florida Panthers 2 days after my birthday, October 5th. Good stuff, Travis Failey. Once again, go ahead and promote yourself here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television live on the Next Gen Sports Network. And, of course, I Love St. Pete.
Absolutely. We're going to be out at the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship on Friday night over at the fairgrounds. Come check it out. It's fantastic. BKFC, Paige Van Zandt's fighting. You can check out my work on rocketsports-ent.com, Travis Failey Photography, and KNAC.com, the loudest.com on the planet. Thank you so much, Peter Blake, and thank you for everybody that's out there watching and listening. And so happy that we had Dave on. He's, like I said before, he's been a great supporter. And let's get Denis Phillips on. Enough of me, more of Peter and Denis Phillips.
Sounds good, Travis Failey. You're the one that keeps on talking here of Rocket Sports Entertainment, my Tampa Bay Lightning.
It flows, my friend. It flows, all right?
Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate you.
You got it, brother.
All right, good stuff. Let me go ahead and read these comments, and then we'll get out to the great Denis Phillips of ABC Action News. We're coming in here tonight. We're bringing talking sports like you want to talk about your Tampa Bay Lightning, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. It never gets old, does it? It never does. So, all right. So we got Christopher Cole says, hey, Pete, what's up? What's going on? Troy Polamalu, King Troy. Trojan legend SC Bucks have been linked with Aaron Rodgers according to multiple sources. I think you are full of it. That's what I think. And I don't think that's true at all. The real test is going to be trying to three-peat NSPN Next Gen. Pete, you the man. Once again, is that young Travis? It was. Michael Walker says, fantastic broadcaster for the Lightning. Way to go, Dave Mishkin. Absolutely. And another great broadcaster with Bruce Martin of the Detroit Red Wings. Good stuff there. Let's go out to another great broadcaster who is a meteorologist at ABC Action News and could be, honestly, a sports broadcaster, but he is on this show. Let's go out to Mr. Denis Phillips of ABC Action News. Try to follow that guy. And I tell you right now, I love his energy, and I love the fact of all the main calls when the Lightning are winning the Stanley Cup. Welcome to the Evolution of Sports Talk Television, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Peter, I'll tell you, one of the highlights that I've got to do in a long, long time, this was about 3 or 4 years ago. I got to do the social media captain for the Bolts in one of their games. And, you know, you go out there and you post on Facebook, you post on Twitter, and you say that they're there. And Dave actually had heard that I was there doing the social media stuff. So he called me up into the booth between in the intermission, and I got to do an interview with him for about 5-10 minutes. I didn't get to call any of the game, obviously, but just talk to him about hockey. It was a blast. Just a great guy. I mean, so that was one of the highlights of my time here in Tampa.
I'll tell you right now, I mean, look, if you're not watching the game, and sometimes there are fans out there who don't want to watch the game because it certainly seems like the national media is against Tampa Bay sports teams, namely the Lightning on NBC Sports Network. Thank God they're gone now for ESPN. You listen to Mishkin and you listen to Phil Esposito, and once again, he paints that picture. He gets you into the game, whether you're there or not. You feel like you're at the game because of some of the calls that he makes. Now, with that being said, what are your thoughts? Back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I mean, simply amazing. And then, Denis, you find out about all the injuries, all the players that are playing through it. Kucherov, of course, McDonough, Hedman, just so many players playing through that. And even Alex Killorn, who's actually trying to get back on the ice after having surgery after breaking his leg. I mean, pretty amazing, right?
I mean, the hockey players, right? I mean, I'm sure pretty much every team out there has significant injuries as you get into the playoffs. I mean, the season's grueling enough, and it wasn't even a full season, but it doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, you just see those guys out there. And what shocked me about it, and I guess it shouldn't, but, you often wonder after they win their first cup, when they're going for back-to-back, you wonder if the motivation is still there. You wonder if there's just as much of a fire the second time around as there was the first. And I think they kind of answered the question from their eyes. There was. I mean, but then again, the talent level, you could just tell. Did anybody really, really honestly think that Montreal can have a chance against this team? Because Vegas certainly didn't. The Bolts were a huge favorite. And I think the Islanders were the only team that was kind of dicey just because of the kind of style of hockey that they play. They play that smothering defense. They tried to slow down the team. And for a period of time, it worked. But I think you just still had to figure eventually the speed and the talent of the Bolts would finally rise above it. And they did. So it was amazing to watch. And then of course now comes Wednesday with the with who are they going to lose. And I'm with the previous guest. I mean, I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. It's going to be Yanni. I would be shocked if it's anybody else.
So you don't think of Tyler Johnson, possibly one of those big time contracts like a Killorn or possibly a lot? You think it's going to be Yanni Gourde?
I do. I know that Tyler Johnson's a Washington guy, and I just every single thing that I have read is that the two big skill players that they're going to be going for. Well, there's several of them, but Josh Failey from the Islanders and Yanni Gourde from the Bolts. I mean, it's almost unanimous in every single place that I've been looking at. So I mean, you never know that. And the thing that I think would be amazing and pretty challenging if you're a general manager of a new team, because it isn't just about drafting those players, because often it's about drafting those players in minds that you're then going to trade them to somebody else to get more about like the Golden Knights did. But you wonder with Carey Price, and I know the NHL has kind of said, no, you're not going to do this, but you have to wonder if they're going to find a way to draft Carey Price and then turn around and try to trade him back to the Canadians for whatever. And I realize the NHL has said, nope, you're not going to do that. But I just have to wonder. You often think about with an expansion team, you got to draft some big names to get some interest. You don't have to with Seattle. There's already a 65,000 person wait list to get season tickets for that team. So you don't need the big names. I mean, I guess if you don't win for a year or two, maybe some of those people will drop off, but there's already a ton of buzz in Seattle. And I think that's got to be one of the coolest logos I've ever seen. that Kraken logo is awesome.
Absolutely. It absolutely is, Dennis. We're on with Denis Phillips of ABC Action News here, meteorologist and sports broadcaster here on the Sports Web Live on the Next Gen Sports Network. And of course, I Love St. Pete. You're a Washington guy. How surprised are you that Alex Ovechkin is on that list? And do you think Seattle could take him just because, he's got a little bit left in the tank, but of course a high salary, right?
No, as far as I know, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am, he's an unrestricted free agent. So it doesn't matter. They can't pick him because he has not signed with anyone. So at the end of the day, he's not even available because he can sign with whoever he wants to. So the reason Washington did this, and it's not an unusual thing for teams to do it, they know that person cannot be picked by that team. So they're not going to waste the spot and they're going to go ahead and protect someone else. Now, if Ovechkin had signed prior to this, then yes, they would have to at that point either protect him or not protect him. But because he's a UFA, I'm pretty sure about this, he cannot be picked by Seattle because he isn't signed by anybody. And so, at that point in time, it's just all about money. And I think it's pretty clear Ovechkin's going to stick around with the Capitals. But I'm pretty sure that that's why they didn't. It had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that they don't have to protect him because he is an unrestricted free agent right now. You can't draft him. You can't pick him in the expansion draft.
Besides losing a Yanni Gourde, of course, we talked about Barclay Goodrow, losing him possibly to the Rangers there with the 7th round pick. They're going to, looking to sign him to a 6-year deal. Do you think there's a distinct possibility because of the high cap number that a Steven Stamkos could be in on a trade? Because you hear every offseason how the Lightning could trade him away, and it certainly seems like he has something left, but he's also been off injured, still the captain. Could you buy this? Could the Lightning actually make that move and trade a Stamkos to another team? Could you see that happening in this offseason?
Yeah. I mean, and think about you can even read between the lines. When you listened to the post interview, the post final game interviews and the GMs and the coaches and the players, they were all just kind of talking like, you know what, this is it. I mean, this team is gone. We're not going to see this team again. And I just kind of got the feeling that you're going to miss one or two of the big names. I mean, think about the Rays when they let Longo go. I let my season tickets go when they let Longo go, when they traded him to the Giants. And honestly, I did. And I had a season ticket from the day one. And I realized that's how the Rays have to play. They play the 2% deal. They play the numbers. And it was probably the right move. But for me, I think with baseball, and you're trying to build a new franchise and build a winning tradition, you got to keep some of those names there to keep the fans involved. Sometimes that's more important than winning or losing. Now, I know there's baseball purists and numbers guys are going to say that's ridiculous, but I think if you're going to grow up and have a fan base that is going to love a player and continue to love that player through the years, sometimes that's more important than W's and L's. But the thing with the Bolts now, I mean, they've got a winning tradition now. They've been a good team for a long time. And sometimes you have to cut bait with some really successful players. With the salary cap being flat as it is, I don't see how they're going to avoid it. Do you?
No, I don't either. I mean, it's going to be tough. All this salary cap talk, they're definitely over. It's an NHL flat cap. It's not like the NFL, which is going up to over $200 million a year next year. So, yeah, you got to do something. And I certainly think it's a possibility, as much as I hated that Longo deal. And you look at it from the standpoint of what the Rays really got out of that, not much besides trading a fan favorite. And that's, basically that's been essentially always my point with the Tampa Bay Rays. It's such a tough deal to be a fan of that team because they get rid of so many fan favorites. But in the grand scheme of things, Dennis, most likely it was the right move because Longo was on the downside. When you watch Stamkos play, do you feel like he could be on the downside of his career because of some of the injuries the last couple of years? Or do you
do?
Okay.
I think you do. I mean, he's getting up there, right? But here's the other thing. I think the Bolts have just more depth in talent than the Rays did back then. I mean, Longo was the face of that team. You could argue the Bolts have 3 or 4 faces of that team. So losing one, whether it's Stamkos or I'm not suggesting any of the other ones, but my point is they have more depth in their talent than I think the Rays did back then. And the Rays have clearly done an amazing job dumping pitchers when they have. And look at what they did for Chris Archer, for heaven's sakes. And then they got him back from Pittsburgh. After picking up Tyler Glasnow and picking up the other minor league pitcher who throws 98, 99, and, and Austin Meadows. I mean, come on. I mean, the team has been miraculous in the way that they make trades. And then again, they get back Archer anyway, which, probably doesn't matter. The guy's probably done, even though I know he's back now. But at the end of the day, I think it's very different with the Bolts because, yeah, maybe they're going to have to get rid of a name because that's kind of professional sports these days and the cap isn't helping. It'll bother a lot of people, but if they're still in the running next year, which got to figure they're going to be, that's just kind of business. That's the way that the game works out. And it's a shame because you wish these guys could play their entire career and retire. And sometimes it works that way, but more often than not, it doesn't.
You're exactly right. And I mean, that's what makes, that's the reason why a team is able to be successful down the road, because you're able to basically cut that player when they need to be cut. When you've used them all up, I mean, that's what the Patriots do in the National Football League. That's what the Rays do. That's why you don't have these exorbitant amount of big-time contracts like the Yankees and Red Sox, because you sign them to those long-term deals, and then basically you're in an Albert Pujols situation where he's on the downside, but you still have to pay for it. With that being said, what we found out about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to me, was kind of amazing. Tom Brady playing through a torn MCL, still throwing for 40 touchdowns, but now the NFL could be cracking down on it. First and foremost, does it really put that season, make it even more special than it already was, with finding out that Brady was playing through a torn MCL? And do you think, Dennis, that the NFL is basically going to come down hard on the Bucs because they didn't report the injury? I mean, why not go into it like the NHL, where you have an upper body injury or a lower body injury? Is that all about gambling aspect of it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, how much money is wagered on the NFL compared to how much money is wagered on the NHL? I mean, there's not even a comparison, right? I mean, probably I would guess the NHL is probably the least wagered sport of any of the 4 major sports. I think that's probably accurate. And my opinion, the only reason that the NFL started issuing those injury reports is for gambling, because it's a huge thing. And there's always been coaches that have kind of found a way around it. Belichick is certainly one of them. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to being forthright with their information, because now with legalized gambling in a lot of places, it might make it even more important. I mean, Florida possibly being one of them as early as the middle of October, although I have my doubts that that's actually going to play out that way. There's all these appeals and everything else. But there's over 14 or 15 states right now that there's legalized sports gambling, and there's going to be a lot more over the next 5 or 10 years. So you go back and look at it, those injury reports were absolutely designed for information for gamblers. And now maybe you could argue fantasy football players as well. But the average Joe probably doesn't care one way or the other. And my guess is the other teams probably have a lot of information. They don't need the official injury report from the NFL to know whether some guys are hurt or not. My guess is they probably have their own sources, and they're going to know what's going on one way or the other.
I mean, and you look at it, a violation of the policy may result in commissioner discipline, which may include a fine on the involved club, fines or suspensions of the involved individuals, as well as possible forfeiture of draft choices by the involved club. So let me get this straight. Is there a distinct possibility, a real possibility here, that Roger Goodell could actually suspend Tom Brady because the organization with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't disclose his injury? I mean, is that really an advantage? I get it, it's a rule, Dennis, but there's not really an advantage there for the Bucs, right?
There wasn't an advantage when it came down to playing on that field. I mean, you're not going to tell me that anybody is going to scheme or plan differently because they didn't think that Tom Brady at 43 years old would be able to move around more with or without a bad knee. I mean, give me a break. I mean, the guy's an older guy who isn't going to scramble, period. So whether his knee was bad or not is not going to make any difference. And you could clearly see that the guy could still throw the ball. So if they're penalized, if they're fined, if whatever happens, it's purely posturing from the NFL to try to make it look like some people are complaining and we don't want to look like we're caving to Tom Brady again because we've already caved once after inflate or deflate gate. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all politics. You are not going to ever convince me ever that any of those games would have made any difference whether or not there was an official injury report that said Tom Brady had a bum knee. And give me a break. It's idiotic.
Yeah, it's idiotic, and I hope that Roger Goodell doesn't suspend Brady. I kind of feel like they're going to find the Bucs and possibly take away draft picks, but to me, that would be a black eye for the National Football League, especially with their response in the Deshaun Watson situation. I mean, I get it. You got to let the law play out. Maybe they're separate incidents. In fact, I think the Watson situation is a lot worse at this point, and the NFL has been mum on it. And if you come out and suspend Brady for this, to me, I don't know. I just don't like it. Now, according to BuccaneersWire.com, and they've just started to kind of change around the stats. Pro Football Reference has officially completed the research, and they say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a new all-time sack leader. That would be Leroy Selmon. In fact, what they say is, speaking of Sapp is the official sack leader of the Buccaneers, finishing with 77 during his time with Tampa Bay. Officially, though, Selmon finished with a career 23 sacks, which would land him 16th on the Buccaneer all-time list. The thing is, Selmon retired after the 84 season. And thanks to Pro Football Reference now, Selmon finished with his career 78.5 sacks, 1.5 more than Sapp. In your opinion, Pewter Report just came out, and there's been various sources that have come out with this. Who is the greatest Tampa Bay Buccaneer of all time? Is it Leroy Selmon, Warren Sapp, or Derek Brooks? Go.
I personally would lean towards Selmon and Brooks. You don't wonder, is that a popularity contest? I mean, if you're talking end results, who had more of an impact on the game? I guess you could argue that Sapp probably did more often than not, but Warren Sapp isn't the most liked guy sometimes within the community of Tampa Bay. I mean, I think with Bucs fans he is, but I mean, he had a reputation of being kind of difficult sometimes and had some issues in the public. So at this point, when you're looking out afterwards, that stuff never interested me, Peter. It just never did, because a lot of times it's a popularity contest. And those are all three great Bucs players that had a huge impact on that team. And I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, what would you say? Would you guess it? Would you say it was Selmon, or would you say it's somebody else?
I mean, for me, Selmon, look, he was the first pick of their history. Not only that, he's the first Hall of Famer. What he meant, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl, I definitely think Derek Brooks in the season he had with the Super Bowl, and if you don't have, of course, a Warren Sapp, so to me, it's tough. It's a tough situation, but you know, I'm kind of biased to this because I am a Florida State Seminole fan. I would say Derek Brooks is the great, but Selmon, my mom's watching right now. She would probably hit me right in the back of my head because she had nothing to. she had everything to say great about Selman and his impact on that defense, and of course Doug Williams. With that being said, do you like that Pro Football Reference is going back into the annals of history and kind of, trying to change these statistics, or do you like it just the way it is right now? Do you like them going back and changing this a little bit?
I just don't care about it one way or the other. It's kind of like Hurricane Katrina. 10 years after the storm hit, the Hurricane Center came back and said, you know what, we're going to change this to a Cat 5. It was a Cat 4 when it hit. I don't care. It's over. I mean, there are some people who are really into that stuff, and I'm not one of them. And I'm not even talking about sabermetrics. I think there's some people that really, really, like, everything hinges on those numbers and the perception of a player after the fact. For me, that's never been one. I mean, you're a perfect example. You took Derek Brooks because you're an FSU guy. So to me, I don't think who's voted the best, and it's a vote. It's a popularity contest more often than not when you're involving people who are fans, because that's what we are. We have our favorites. I mean, if you want to take the numbers purely by the numbers, I mean, you can do it that way, but that's never been my thing. I've always been more about the team and the wins and losses as opposed to the individual numbers, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, putting Florida State aside, I think the season he had in 2002 with that Super Bowl squad, I mean, put it up against Defensive Players of the Year at that point, and basically what you're coming to find out is that, Brooks did some amazing things that year with all the touchdowns that he had, with all the, the leadership qualities, the tackling ability, just amazing year. And then to top it all off, he has a touchdown in the Super Bowl, in Super Bowl 37. Basically, they fulfill that that goal that John Gruden set before the year, and I believe it was like 6 touchdowns. Returned 6 touchdowns back. We don't have a great offense, and we had this new offensive system. But if you're truly a great defense, you got to have 6 touchdowns from that defense. I think 6 or 7, something along those lines. But I thought that was the cherry on the cake. With that being said, not everybody's a Tom Brady fan, especially former Patriots. In fact, Byron Cowart, a Patriots defensive tackle who played 1 year with Brady. So obviously here, Dennis, he doesn't know that you're not supposed to provide bulletin board material. Well, that's exactly what he did. In fact, he said this on the Patriots Way of Life podcast, which, by the way, I don't know what the heck kind of name of that is, but okay. He's done a lot of these things. He's done a lot of things for this organization. All right. He's coming back, but he's coming back as an opponent. So I'm going to treat him like any opponent. We ain't welcoming him. We just got to play him. There ain't going to be no damn ceremony for him or nothing like that. They might clap for him, but that's going to be no, bro. This is our opponent, bro. What we like to win. So knowing what we know about going back to Tom Brady's history, is this a smart thing by this Patriots defensive tackle? Or basically, is this going to come back to haunt him on October 3rd?
I mean, we all know Tom Brady's a fierce competitor anyway. I don't think he needs any additional motivation other than to step on that football field up there and to see Belichick across the sidelines. I mean, I don't care what a single year player that played with him or against him says. I think if there was ever a motivated player, that's probably going to put him in the best possible motivation that he'll ever run into. So personally, I don't think I think he could care less what this dude says. I think he'll have all the motivation he needs right across with a hoodie on. I think that's all he's going to have to worry about.
All right, real quick, Denis Phillips of ABC Action News, great meteorologist. What's the weather like this week in the Tampa Bay area?
Hey, there's some rain going on behind me. There's a lot of rain in Polk County right now, pretty heavy stuff. And last week we had all that sunshine early half of the day, and then all the storms rolled in about 4 or 5 coming back toward the west. Everything's going to do a flip-flop. It's going to do a 180. And all the rains are going to come in from the west coast earlier in the day, like late morning, early afternoon, and then move to the east coast at night. So what we had last week, typical Florida, going to be a complete 180 from what we've had over the last week. The tropics are quiet. They will stay quiet at least through the end of this month, and then we'll see how August and September shape up.
All right. Now, have you watched the current, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers edition of Hard Knocks? But basically they are chronicling the season in 2020 for the Bucs. Have you watched that show by chance?
I haven't, and I want to.
Well, what I thought was surprising is that, it was all assumed when the Bucs were down to the Atlanta Falcons 17-0 that it was Tom Brady, but it was in all actuality, it was JPP. Are you surprised that JPP right now is, and this is what it looks like to me, and this is what it sounds like to me, that basically he saved that Tampa Bay Buccaneers season with his halftime speech? Are you surprised that it's JPP and not a Tom Brady?
I don't know. Boy, that defense had a lot more to do with the Bucs winning that Super Bowl last year than a lot of folks want to give him credit for. I mean, whether it's a halftime speech or whether it's 4 turnovers against New Orleans or Green Bay or whatever the numbers were, I mean, that defense kept that team in the game and was, in my opinion, was a bigger reason why they beat New Orleans and beat Green Bay than the offense was. So I'm with you. I personally think that D doesn't get nearly enough props from the national media. I think, folks like you and definitely local fans, they know just how awesome and amazing that defense was. But yeah, on a national scale, it's all about Tom Brady because that's the story. That's the bigger story. But I think we all know as Bucs fans and folks who watch those games know that defense had every bit as an important part of winning that Super Bowl in the playoffs, especially than Tom Brady did, if not more than what Tom Brady did.
I don't think he gets enough credit because if you look at the quarterbacks that, basically you shut down, and a Drew Brees and a Patrick Mahomes, of course, and Aaron Rodgers, guys were not throwing for, all kinds of yards. And if they were, it's because the Bucs were, had a big time lead and were turning over the ball, namely in Aaron Rodgers. But overall, this defense was absolutely one of the most important parts of this Super Bowl championship team. And in fact, what Mike Evans says on this episode is JPP hyped us up and he started calling everybody out, telling them, we can't do this if we want to make the playoffs. We can't let this game slip away. And I remember being out at the Deck Bar and Grill in Isla del Sol, trying to figure out what you say to fans at that point on the other platform. And I just had nothing to say. I think the Bucs at that point offensively had 60 yards. And look, if they don't turn that around, it could easily be 24-0, but they start to get stops. Devin White starts to play out of his mind. And then once the defense starts to get those stops, then basically you give it back to the offense, and Atlanta's defense couldn't do anything after that.
Yeah, I just think the defense is, and Bucs fans know, because if you watch that entire season, I mean, you know how important that defense was. And I'll say it again in the playoffs, that they would not have won the Super Bowl. I don't care who was quarterback if the defense did not play lights out like they did. I mean, they shut down New Orleans, which I truthfully did not think was going to happen. And they contained Aaron Rodgers enough to keep that game in the W column. But I was more impressed with what they did against Drew Brees and New Orleans, especially, just after what Kamara had done a few weeks earlier. I think that still, to me, was as much of an impressive defensive performance as I saw from them the entire season.
Yeah, good stuff. And again, we're on with Denis Phillips of ABC Action News here on the Next Gen Sports Network. And of course, I love St. Pete. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. Of course, Monday Night Football, their ratings have kind of slid a little bit. Now this comes out, according to ESPN, the alternative is going to be Peyton and Eli Manning. They're going to co-host a Monday Night Football megacast on ESPN2 for 10 games each of the next 3 NFL seasons. I mean, does that do anything for you? Does that make you more interested in this? Or are they basically, just getting more and more desperate with the ratings kind of falling by the wayside? And why do you think the ratings have fallen by the wayside? Is it because it's not on ABC like it used to be? It's on ESPN? Make some sense of this.
That's a great question. And I don't think so. I mean, the networks are no longer relevant in terms of major sporting events. I mean, they're just not. I mean, look at most of the playoffs. They're either on USA, they were on NBA, they were on TNT, they're on ESPN, ESPN2, ABC. I mean, there are so many sources out there that are carrying national sports that it's like the olden days. I mean, we had 3 channels. We had ABC, we had NBC, we had CBS. Fox wasn't even a thing. And, Monday Night Football was always an ABC thing, but I don't think that's the thing anymore. I mean, you have Sunday Night Football on NBC, things are moving around. I don't think that matters. I'd love to know the answer. There have not been the best announcers over the last several years without finger pointing or getting into it, because one of my favorite pastimes is to go on Twitter during a Monday Night Football game and search the comments about the individual hosts that were on, and they were just absolutely brutal and hysterical. And I would, especially one that was a local guy. And at the end of the day, I don't know what the answer is. I don't think Peyton Manning is going to be the answer. He's solid enough, I guess. I mean, I watched this game show with him last night and his other brother, Connor, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what his name?
Yeah. I think his name is. Yeah.
I think it's Connor. And it was just nothing to it. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't see, I mean, there's not a broadcaster out there that kind of grabs me, but are people really tuning into the game for the broadcaster? I hope not. I would hope they're tuning into the game because they want to watch a good game. So that's a great question. I don't know the answer because, Monday night was always the bailout game for most folks. If you were betting on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, Monday night was always your game that you had as your bailout, and you would always watch it. And nowadays, that just doesn't seem to be the case anymore. And I don't get it why, because it's still Monday Night Football to me.
Are you surprised that we have no resolution to the Aaron Rodgers situation? And again, you're a betting man on this. How is this going to work out? Is he going to report to Packers camp, or are they going to get a trade done? Or is this going to be a holdout and once again a story that we're going to be talking about, Dennis, in the next couple months?
Man, I've gone back and forth on this for the last 2 or 3 months. I keep changing my mind because at first I kept thinking, you know what? I respect Packer management for saying, you know what? You're on our team. Who are you to demand a trade? And you're either going to play for us or you're not going to play at all. And in the back of my mind, that's kind of what I wanted because I'm old school when it comes to stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to trade him. But everything that I'm reading is I don't think he's going to play either. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of folks just saying he would rather see. I guess he doesn't need the money. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what his financial situation is, but most of the stuff I'm reading is he certainly doesn't need the money. He could sit out and go somewhere else next year. But he's also 37 years old, right? Isn't he 37?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess Brady set the bar, though, that you can still win a Super Bowl at 43. So, maybe that age isn't an issue anymore. But I'm hearing a lot of good stuff about Jordan Love. I'm hearing that he's taken over the reins and doing pretty well. Now, maybe that's agent hype to try to get Rodgers to be a little nervous and say, maybe I'm going to come back in. I don't know. It's one big soap opera. And honestly, I hate the stuff. I hate it. I just want to see whoever's out there in the field, get out there in the field and let us watch the games and enjoy it because the drama stuff, I detest it. It annoys me to no end.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm ready for this situation to be over, whether he's a Bronco and I suggested a Raider. I'm not sure who's in that mix, and I'm not sure the Packers really have to do anything unless they want this drama to carry over. And look, even if you do get Aaron Rodgers back in that locker room, you have to feel like there's going to be some type of impact, right, on this team going forward?
The guy, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure there was probably some drama going on last year that we didn't even hear about it, and he still had a ridiculously great year. And I'm thinking maybe the Packers didn't even realize he was going to have as good of a year as he did, which is maybe why they drafted Jordan Love in the first place. But he clearly balled out and had an amazing year. So I would think they want him on the field because at the end of the day, do you not think that the Packers have a better chance of winning with Aaron Rodgers on the field than with Jordan Love on the field? I certainly do.
Hey, and I agree with you on that. Mike Florio had this to say to Paul Allen on KFAN. He actually believes, I have believed all along that Rodgers is going to show up. I think he wants to keep it uncertain through July 26th, the day of the shareholders meeting. So Mark Murphy has to deal with all this crap of the shareholders and cheeseheads who are antsy and upset about all the uncertainty. And then the next day, we find out that Aaron Rodgers shows up. I didn't buy the thing this past weekend when he said, I'll figure it out in a couple weeks. Well, in a couple weeks, camp opens. You better figure it out before a couple weeks. Of course, Mark Murphy has come out lately and said there is nothing new on the situation. And I feel like, Packer fans are definitely not on his side. I got to ask you a question because my uncle just walked into the house. He's visiting. He wants to know, what do you think the aspect of Tim Tebow, what are the chances of Tim Tebow, in your opinion, making the Jacksonville Jaguars? I've heard a lot of sports broadcasters basically doubt it because of his age, him not knowing the position. What do you think are the chances? Give me some type of percentage here, Dennis Phillips.
Yeah, this is one thing I've said from day one. I don't think he makes that club. I don't think he makes the squad. I don't know what the percentage would be. I just don't think he's going to make it. I mean, I'm not saying that the guy doesn't have a huge heart and doesn't try harder and work harder, but at the end of the day, he's not a tight end. And do you really think that somebody can just learn a position in 3 or 4 months and do the things that you need to do? I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going to be using that tight end position a lot, I would think, as somebody as kind of as a check down. So, you almost wonder, do you want somebody in there who can really, really help him, who knows the position, or somebody who's still learning the position himself? So, in my opinion, he doesn't make the squad.
Deshaun Watson, that's been a subject also on this show. I go back to Ben Mahler of Fox Sports Radio, and he had this suggestion. He believes that Deshaun Watson will not play until 2023, and this is why. Basically, what he says is the NFL won't make a decision until September, right before the season. He's going to go on the inactive list where he still gets paid, but he won't play the whole season. And then eventually in February, I believe it's right after the Super Bowl, then he's going to be able to have a deposition. So what he believes, it's going to be 2 years. Do you think with this situation, the way it's out right now, that we could see Deshaun Watson playing in the league in 2 years? Or do you believe some of the hype, which we keep on hearing, there's teams out there that are interested, namely the Philadelphia Eagles, which to me, look, I get it. Watson is very talented, but this is definitely a black eye for the league. There's so much uncertainty. And on top of it, you have a Jalen Hurts. Does this make sense to you?
Well, and the Dolphins are interested as well.
Right.
I've been hearing that the Eagles and the Dolphins are into it. I personally am a Jalen Hurts guy. And he certainly did not embarrass himself out there last year. And, at the end of the day, he was stepping into a position that was kind of a disaster. And, and then he did fine. Matter of fact, I had him as a fantasy quarterback a few weeks and he did exceptional for me. But, in terms of Deshaun, this is one of those things that I think the NFL is going to be absolutely positively 100% sure that they cannot be perceived as doing something other than the right thing, and whatever that is in their minds, because at this point in time, there can't be any gray area for them. And I think they're going to be really, really clear before anything. They're not going to do anything until that situation has resolved itself through the legal system, through whatever else has to happen. And we all know that sometimes that can take quite a while to get through the legal system. But I just cannot imagine that they are going to allow Deshaun to be anywhere near a football team until this makes its way through that process and however that plays out. I mean, I think it's clear that the NFL does have a history of forgiveness for players who have made poor choices. A lot of times they've been involved with drugs. Josh Gordon is one of them. Mm-hmm. They give him chances over and over again. You could argue Michael Vick. You could argue several players, but at the end of the day, this is a new generation. This is a new era that we're living in. And I think with this particular event that he's accused of, I don't think there's going to be any gray area. I think they're going to be absolutely positive that this has run its course and that the legal system has done what it needs to do to determine whether he's innocent or guilty of those charges. Until then, I don't think he plays. Yeah,
I don't think he plays either. And I'm not sure if the Texans even want to trade him, even though there is this situation. Maybe they think it clears up. He still has value if he's able to play. I'm just not sure. Now, with that being said, I'm not sure about fantasy football, but I know you are, Mr. Dennis Phillips of ABC Action News. Saquon Barkley, your guy from Penn State. Last year, 19 carries, 34 yards, of course, coming off pretty tremendous injury there in a torn ACL. So, in your opinion, do you feel like he goes from a top, first round, second round back to possibly mid-range? And if you do that, you look at the years previous to the injury, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and in 2018, 1,300 yards. So in your opinion, if he's healthy, and that's a big if because he's coming off this injury, but if he is, and you can get him in the mid-round, is that a steal?
Yeah, he's not healthy. And they've even asked him, and I'm a Saquon guy, flat out. I'm getting a new puppy next week, and I'm debating about naming him Barkley. I am a Saquon guy, but he's come out flat out and said that he won't be ready until October. And, it may even be longer than that. The Giants are not going to put him in a situation until he is absolutely 100%. Saquon is a quick healer. But I think anybody who drafts him, even in the first or the second round, I just think that's a major mistake. There's too many question marks. I mean, if you could get him mid-rounds and think come playoff time, fantasy playoff time, that you might have a guy rounding back into form of Saquon's caliber, then, that's worth a shot. But as much as I love him, I will steer far, far away from Saquon. I think it's Dalvin Cook and McCaffrey. I think Cook and McCaffrey are my number one and number two guys, and probably McCaffrey one. His injuries that he had last year were so fluky. I don't think it's one that a lot of folks are going to have to worry about a recurring injury. I mean, Dalvin Cook, you're an FSU guy. Dalvin Cook has a history of injury, but I'll tell you, last year he was just unbelievable, and he didn't show any signs of slowing down. And I think those are your two top guys.
And I think you're right about that. And the problem is with the Cook is the fact that he does get injured, but when he's healthy, he's one of the top running backs in the league. So, it's kind of tricky to draft him, but you still draft him, I think, in the first two rounds. With all that being said, and Adrian Peterson, a former Minnesota Viking running back, you look back at last year for the Lions, 604 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he's talking about playing for his 15th NFL season. Number one, do you feel like he will get a job with an NFL team? And number two, does he still have fantasy value? An AP all day, every day, is he still a guy that you can depend on when it comes down to in a crunch?
Nah, you don't. I mean, the guy had an amazing career. If you followed him, I mean, he spelled DeAndre Swift whenever Swift was hurting, which was a little bit as well. I love DeAndre Swift. Love the guy. And I think a lot of people who don't follow it closely only remember him dropping that touchdown pass in game one that they lost the game because of it. I mean, the guy is a superstar in waiting, and I realize that they've got some depth there in Detroit. But Peterson, he went to the Washington football team thereafter, right? And I've not even followed him because I've not paid any attention. Where has he signed on with anybody yet, or is he still a free agent?
No, I didn't see him sign on with anybody at this point. In fact, he's just a guy, and he's one of the best guys in the history of the game, overall. But this year, if you're drafting Adrian Peterson to be anywhere near your backfield, you're going to be playing for last place. You're exactly right about that, unless you have multiple injuries and you drafted Dalvin Cook and another off-injured running back, maybe a McCaffrey. If you draft a guy like that or somebody, then once again, maybe you get a running back at that point in a Peterson. But I think you're exactly right. There's probably better options there, but there is no better option here. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and if you're drafting Dalvin Cook, then you sure as heck better be drafting Alexander Mattison as the handcuff to him, because even though he had appendicitis last year and was out toward the end of last year, that guy is a stud backup. And I think at the end of the day, if Cook does go down and it's down for a season-ending career or season-ending injury, Mattison is your guy. So yeah, if you're going to draft Dalvin Cook, you want to do Mattison, and then of course there's Derrick Henry too as the top three to round out the top three. So that's my thought. But I'm always a running back guy. I've always been the guy who likes to draft running backs early, and of late that's really not the best way to go because running backs seem to be going down like crazy every year. And very rarely, I mean, Kamara was one of the only ones, and Derrick Henry were really the only two guys that actually stepped up. You want a sleeper for this year? And I know it's not much of a sleeper, but I'm telling you, I think Lamar Jackson comes right back and ends up as MVP again. I think Lamar Jackson turns the corner, and after last year being hurt, I think the Ravens are going to be really, really good. So that's my MVP, fantasy MVP sleeper.
Who's your starting running back for the Bucs? Because my choice. It's the victim of volume and a Ronald Jones, but a Leonard Fournette, the way he ran in the postseason. Do you feel like Fournette has kind of the advantage, or is it a Rojo, or could it be a Keyshawn Vaughn?
I think we will all spend hours wasting our time over the next 6 months trying to figure out who should be the lead back for the Bucs. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the hot hand, because that's always who it is. And Bruce Arians has shown absolutely no sign of changing anything that he does with that. You know, if Leonard has a hot first half, they might keep him in. I mean, I think Ronald Jones is probably the guy that you would like to see take charge of that backfield. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. And you're right, Keyshawn Vaughn has got a ton of talent too. I mean, it's a great situation to be in that they've got that kind of depth. But I think as fans, we want to see a number one. We want to see a guy take over. But I don't think on this team you have to, because you've got the receiving core that we have. And let's be honest, that's where their W's are going to come from. Not so much the running game, but the wide receivers.
All right, good stuff. I got to read this comment because this is from my uncle right here. Wow, I thank you very much, Peter, for having on your show one of the best meteorologists and someone that knows what's going on with the football game. Thanks so much, Dennis Phillips, for being there, for a real great man. That's my favorite nephew, Peter Blake. Great job, Peter and Dennis, for giving us a great show. So on that note, there's not a better option out there, in my opinion, and then Denis Phillips of ABC Action News. Once again, go ahead and promote yourself here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television.
Well, appreciate it, Peter. Again, chief meteorologist here, ABC Action News. I'm on at 5, 5:36, and 11. And a lot of folks have been asking me if I'm going to be retiring sometime soon. Apparently, I'm looking even older than I used to. But I actually just signed a new contract a couple of days ago, so I'll be here for quite a while longer. So if you don't like the suspenders, you probably should change the channel, because that's kind of what I'm stuck with right now.
Well, congratulations on the new deal. Well-deserved. And by the way, I'm really sorry I didn't get a chance to come out there, but how did Dunning and Blue Jays and the bobblehead night go? Rule number 7. Of course, if you don't know what rule number 7 is, go ahead and explain that to everybody.
It's don't freak out unless I'm freaking out. We're fine. I came up with them back in 2012 and Hurricane Isaac was coming. Everybody was freaking out. And like, look, most of the time, hurricanes don't hit us. Overwhelming majority of the time, they miss us. And everybody likes to show all the models, worst case scenario, oh, we're going to die, all these things are going to happen. And the overwhelming majority of the time, it doesn't happen. So I just try to kind of even out the hype a little bit. And by the way, for my first pitch on the bobblehead night, to quote a famous Milwaukee Brewer announcer, just a bit outside. I did not bounce it. But I was about 3 feet outside. It would have nailed a left-handed hitter, but I did not bounce it, so I was okay with that.
All right, a famous line from that movie. Of course, we're talking about Major League. If you don't know, kids, go ahead and Google it. Bob Uecker there doing the announcing in that. What is it? Ball 3, ball 4, ball
8, ball 12.
Yes. How can these hitters lay off such close pitches?
Yeah, and my pitch was, like I said, easily 3 feet inside on a lefty. But you know what? Like I said, I just got up there thinking, I don't want to bounce it. And I didn't bounce it, so all was good.
I remember 50 Cent bouncing a pitch. I mean, not
right.
Going to be able to do a worse pitch than that. And there was one that threw out a first pitch, and Matt Moore was here, and she did the song Call Me Maybe. I'm trying to think of her name.
Carly Rae Jepsen.
That was a god-awful pitch, so there's no way to do any worse than that. Denis Phillips of ABC Action News.
You know what I tried to do is I was walking on with the mascot, and I even said, do you want to pull a Bull Durham? What if I turn and hit you in the head with it? He's like, no, man, don't do it. I'm like, okay, all right. But I thought about it. I was going to hit the mascot.
Hit the mascot. I love it. And then they call the play. The guy calls a perfect game for him, and he decides to shake him off. And then what happens, Dennis?
Dashes a home run to right field. He's like, it's still going. He's like, you told him what I was going to throw. He's like, yep. Kevin Costner said, you know what? Don't shake me off when you're throwing a shutout. It was a 2-hit shutout, as a matter of fact.
Beautiful. Good stuff here. Baseball movies here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. Once again, thanks a lot for your time here on the Next Gen Sports Network. And of course, I love St. Pete. All right.
Take care, Peter. Have a good one.
All right. There you go. Denis Phillips of ABC Action News. Got to get Blake Anthony on. Yes, that Blake Anthony. Blake and Blake Sports. Let me read these comments. Again, welcome back to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. And once again, just so happy to be a part of this great platform, Next Gen Sports Network, and of course on I Love St. Pete. I'm going to go ahead and put up the number because we had somebody call in, and I want to make sure that we get to him, we get to the phone calls, but let's go ahead, get to these comments, and then we will get to Mr. Blake Anthony. Free my boy Watson. Again, remains to be seen what's going to happen with that situation. We shall see what happens. Yepers, I just got scared by thunder. Troy says, Peter, where have you been? We thought you sold out to ESPN for $10 million. Hey, I like it. But I did not sell out to anybody at this point. Kind of been trying to figure some things out. And we've kind of figured that out. Peyton and Eli, don't move the meter for me. Bucks time 12. Thanks a lot. Read that comment. Bucks time 12. Running back by committee in the Bucks backfield. Even Gio has a good chance of playing time unless Rojo just destroys. And looking at the article, I think about a week and a half ago, we were talking, I believe, to Leo Haggerty. There was a podcast out there that was trying to say that Rojo is one of the top running backs out there, one of the top 10 running backs because of yards after contact. Look it up, kids. I'm not making this up. When the guy gets the carries. But again, it's a good problem for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to have because they have a Lombardi Lenny. Of course, they have Rojo, Keyshawn Vaughn, and a Giovanni Bernard from the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's go out to Mr. Blake Anthony. I got to say this, reunited, and it feels so good. Blake and Blake Sports is in the building. Welcome to the Evolution on the Next Gen Sports Network. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Welcome. What you talking about? I've been here forever. I got a room in the back, Peter. I've been on the sports web, brother.
So I got to ask you here, what are your thoughts about the Tampa Bay Lightning? Because if you don't know, Blake Anthony is a big-time Tampa Bay Lightning fan. Give me your thoughts about this postseason run by this tremendous organization.
I'm going to take it like Drake and say back to back. So they tried to say they had the COVID Cup. Well, it didn't work out too much for them because it looked like we got the COVID Cup and the Cup after, too. So the Holy Grail and the COVID Cup, Indiana Jones reference. But
very nice.
Lightning found a way to do that, overcame so much adversity. I think the best way to sum up 2021 season is overcome an adversity. I think the word would just be adversity because from Kucherov being out all year, I don't know if you guys saw my interview with Sonia Bryson-Kirksey, wonderful woman. She knows her roster from top to bottom. She said it best from all these guys from injury from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. These guys knew they had a goal, they had an objective, and they held themselves accountable. That's why you never saw them lose back-to-back games, and they would recover from what had happened to them the game before.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Kucherov going through, the injury situation all year and then coming back in the postseason and then having to deal with basically a rib injury. And I don't know if you've ever had a rib injury before, but you basically can't even breathe. And here's a guy that's playing at the top level. I go back to our guy, Leo Haggerty, of former Coach Scout and now media member of Night Sports Productions. He says that Kucherov to him is the Magic Johnson of the NHL. Is that what you see with him?
Yeah, he's a great distributor. He scores a lot of points. And when I say points, I mean from assists and goals. He's just really great the way he can distribute the puck as well as create his own scoring opportunities. So I would definitely say he is like the Magic Johnson for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I can agree with that.
All right. Now, the news came out this week about Tom Brady playing through a torn MCL. How surprised were you by that news? And does it put a different perspective on his year? Which, look, still playing at an elite level, going to that type of injury, and then, of course, the NFL could be suspending the Bucs or Brady. First and foremost, tell me about, does that change your perspective on that story that came out about Brady this week?
I mean, if you know Tom Brady, and I think a lot of people have gotten to know him, what his work ethic is. And the phrase, always has been, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, Tom Brady tries to work himself into situations where if that happens, he'll be able to play through it. And clearly he did that so with that MCL being injured the way it was, only taking not an exorbitant amount of sacks all season and putting himself in a position where he doesn't compromise all year long. But I know the report came out by by Jenna Lane earlier in the year when Brady was asked about that after the surgery, and he said he felt pretty good. He wasn't 100% yet to run on it. But just hearing at 43 years of age, coming from that kind of injury and being able to overcome all that adversity is just amazing. And I think he is definitely setting a milestone again for guys playing over the age of 40.
Blake, do you think the NFL and Goodell would suspend Brady or this Bucs organization with possibly a fine or a loss of a draft pick? Because, Mike Florio is talking about this, ProFootballTalk.com, saying that, there's a possibility Goodell could actually suspend Brady. Would Goodell do that? And how tremendously awful would that be for this team going forward?
I think that would be kind of crazy that you would try to suspend somebody for, I guess, not reporting an injury. It's not like it helped you win the game at all or anything like that. I definitely can see a fine or something like that. Definitely a fine. Like again, and a draft pick. I mean, I think that's just excessive over not reporting an injury. But we've seen stranger things with this league and Roger Goodell. So the jury's still out on this, and I'm waiting to hear when more information comes out on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're on with Blake Anthony at Sports Talk 49 on the Next Gen Sports Network, of course, and on I Love St. Pete. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. With all that being said, what do you think about bulletin board material? Because we just heard from a defensive tackle who basically said this is not going to be a ceremony, if you will, just to paraphrase. Get ready. Everybody may be clapping for you. But this is not going to be a great time for you on October 3rd. Do you like those comments from an opposing player, knowing what Brady does? He's got that, that fiery competitive ability. He's a fiery competitor, and he'll take something like this and he'll make sure it motivates him even more. Do you like those comments, or do you feel like Bill Belichick should kind of step in and say, you know what, kind of shut your mouth because Tom Brady is a different animal altogether?
I mean, well, the comments is made, so whether Bill said something afterwards is, it doesn't matter. It's already been said. But I agree. He uses anything as motivation, and if we know Tom Brady really doesn't need bulletin board material to get hype, but that definitely helps. And New England Patriots will be the only team that he has not defeated in his entire career, of course, because he played there for that long. So that'll be definitely Tom Brady will be the first team to beat all 32 teams in the NFL. Come week 4, October 3rd, at 8:20 against the New England Patriots in Foxborough. I think he's already ready to play there coming into that game. I think he's going to be laser focused that game. If the Bucs can take the load off him and get a heavy run game that game and let Tom Brady just enjoy a nice, easy victory, that'd be nice. But I definitely see Tom Brady putting up a 300-yard passing game in that performance.
Yeah, it could be 400 yards if that Patriot defense can't get off the field. But I think they're going to be improved. They're going to have some players back that opted out last year. How surprised were you? And I'm not sure if you watched the current. I kind of think you do. But how surprised were you that it was JPP that basically, in so many words, saved that season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? They're down 17-0. I believe we're there together covering in this game, and we just have no answers at that point. Because the Bucs offensively only have 60 yards. They're down 17-0. Everybody assumed it was Tom Brady giving, that the halftime pep talk, but it's actually JPP. How surprised were you that it was JPP that basically saved this Bucs season?
Not surprised at all. There's a reason why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kept bringing Jason Pierre-Paul back after the trade that they acquired him via trade from the New York Giants. J.C. Pierre-Paul is just a guy who talks within the locker room and doesn't do all that on the field. He talks when he needs to talk. He's not really there to get the spotlight on him. You want to, ask him stuff, he'll tell you the truth. I think J.C. Pierre-Paul's always been that guy that'll speak his mind. But I'm not surprised at all. I said he did that when they weren't winning many games. He was trying to be a vocal leader and said some players needed to be removed from the team. I don't know if you remember that when we were covering all that years past, but it doesn't surprise me at all. That's the reason why you brought him back here. And Bruce Arians has shown that's why he drafts players that are captains. That's why he finds leaders so he doesn't have to do it and step in when he needs to. So to answer your question, it doesn't surprise me at all that Jason Pierre-Paul helped resurrect that team being down deficits in certain games.
Watching the current, have you learned anything that you didn't know from last year? And what is it?
Some of these rookies, the way they they came in and played like veterans. A lot of times you expect the Antoine Winfield Jr., Tristan Wirfs, and guys that had to play a lot that weren't on the year before cost some games or give up some plays. These guys really just stepped in like veterans. I think that part really surprised me. The rest of the guys, the veterans on the defense, it didn't shock me. They've been doing what they've been doing before. Devin White took his game to another level. It's just this team they just know how to play with each other, and these coaches just know how to motivate these guys.
And we're on with Blake Anthony at Sports Talk 49 here on the Sports Web, live on the Next Gen Sports Network, live on I Love St. Pete. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. How do you think this Aaron Rodgers situation is going to work out, and are you tired of hearing about it?
It's Aaron Rodgers. He likes the drama. He wants to stick it back to them for embarrassing them for drafting a quarterback. So everybody, if anybody knows anything about Aaron Rodgers, he's a diva. He's going to drag this out, and the league's going to play into it because it's just like if it was LeBron James in the NBA. Anything going on, they're going to keep putting in headlines because everybody's going to keep reading it. So they're going to drag this out as long as they can. But to answer your question again, he's going to be right back there in Green Bay.
All right, there you go. And with that being said, you talked about LeBron James. I'll get off. I'll let you off on this. Space Jam 1 with Michael Jordan or Space Jam 2 with LeBron James? Why?
Always Space Jam 1. Just I think the story was a lot better because they didn't rely on computer animated graphics and things like that. Space Jam 2 did have its up and down. I really did enjoy Don Chino's filling his character. I really thought he did a really great job with his character. But I really think 1 is best, not just because LeBron James and Michael Jordan. That's a huge conversation in itself. I just like the story of it. I think it was a little better built. But other people are going to have different opinions. But I enjoyed Space Jam 1.
All right, Milwaukee close it out tomorrow night, or Phoenix have a game 7 in them?
I think it goes to 7. I think it goes to 7. I think the Suns finally figure out how to. Yep, I think the Suns figure out a way to close it out. I know a lot of people aren't high on the Suns right now, especially Milwaukee won 3 straight. They did have leads, 16-point leads, so Phoenix can put up points and get leads on them. They just have to be able to sustain them and get stops. It would help if they got Milwaukee's key stars and key players into some foul trouble, and they can make some runs, and Chris Paul and Devin Booker guys can stop turning the ball over in key situations and put down buckets when they need to put it down. But I really think that they pull it together and pull out a game 7 here, and we'll see what happens after that in game 7.
All right, love it. Good stuff there. Blake Anthony at Sports Talk 49. Go ahead and promote yourself here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television.
Oh, of course. You can always find all my content right here on NSPN Next Gen on all the social media platforms. During the season, it'll be Monday and Friday. Right now, we're just posting content, doing interviews, and getting other shows like you just saw today at 7:30 on Mondays. The Bossed Up podcast with the ladies that we had seen on WWE. Last year's ladies, you can check them out every Monday at 7:30. Peter, we just want to give you another proper shout out. Thanks for coming over to NSPN and working out with everybody here on the platform. Looking forward to seeing great content and a bunch of interviews, and it's just good working back with you.
Absolutely. It's good working back with you again. It's just like old times again. Blake and Blake Sports, Mr. Blake Anthony of Sports Talk 49. Thanks a lot for your time here on the evolution of Sports Talk Television. All right, boss?
Glad to be here. Thanks, Pete.
All right. There you go. So we'll go ahead and read some of these comments, and then we'll get out of here for the night. A lot of great things, a lot of great plans in store. I can't let you know about everything. I can just sit back and kind of laugh a little bit and kind of smile and just wait and just be patient because football season is coming and sports is all year round. And that's what I love about NSPN. That's what I love about it because it's not just Bucks content, although we got you covered. We talk Lightning. We talk Rays sometimes. Probably should talk more about it. We talk around the NFL. I don't care if you're another fan of a team. You're welcome here. I didn't even put up the number. I did. There it is. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. Let me read these comments. Bucks Time 12 says, Blake Anthony, what's up? Troy Polamalu, King Troy, Trojan Legend SC. I believe Brady will suspend Goodell. I think you meant Goodell will suspend Brady. I don't know if that's going to happen. I feel like I should do this again. I don't know. You become the troll king here when Roger Shu's not on. JPP is a fire starter. Very funny. So what do you guys think? And I'll tell you right now, let me go ahead and take this call because I want to make sure that I get this guy on. He called in. I want to make sure we get all your phone calls on. And definitely when you call in, leave a message. You can text in I mean, this is the great thing about the evolution of sports talk television. I'm going to call this guy. This guy, his name is Rob. Rob, are you there? He's not there. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Pete.
Yeah, you called the evolution of sports talk television. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Yeah, Pete, I was wondering what you and Travis think about the Milwaukee Bucks beating the Phoenix Suns and also the Baltimore Orioles beating the Tampa Bay Rays tonight.
I don't know what to think about the Baltimore Orioles beating the Tampa Bay Rays. It's a long baseball season. The Rays have played definitely a lot better. Of course, the loss of Taylor Glass now has definitely hurt this pitching staff, although they're getting contributions. We'll see if it works out. We'll see if they make a trade at the trading deadline. With that being said, it's one loss. With Milwaukee, I'm not sure what to think. I'm really surprised that they're leading the series with Giannis being injured. But guys like Chris Middleton have stepped up. That has been the key to it. And then on top of it, the rebounding advantage, the defensive advantage over Phoenix, which I never thought in a million years was going to be the key to this series because of some of the size that the Suns have. So I'm not sure. I'm not ready to say that the Suns are dead. I like to see Chris Paul win the championship. But, of course, Milwaukee has the opportunity, home court advantage to close it out tomorrow night. I'm kind of thinking they may, but I'm kind of hoping for a Game 7. What do you think about this series? Have you been glued to it? Have you enjoyed it? There's been a lot of people that said, you know what? No super teams this year. Are you interested in the NBA? Rob, are you interested in this series?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Why have you been interested in this series?
It's been pretty good, back and forth. And
so you're not a fan of the super teams?
No.
All right, who do you think the Lightning are going to lose on Wednesday night? Is it Yanni Gord?
I'd say Ryan McDonough.
I don't think Ryan McDonough is protected.
Pete, thanks for taking my call tonight.
All right, thanks a lot there, Rob. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and fire the cannons for him right there. I believe McDonough is protected. So, yeah, and now, is there a possibility of a trade because he has a high salary? Yes, but like Travis says, he went with defense. I can't see them losing a blue liner like a McDonough. Of course, they protect a Cernak and, of course, a Sergachev. So there you go. All right. Christopher Cole says JPP is a firecracker. Laugh out loud. You guys are playing games with me tonight. I appreciate that here on NSPN. It's the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about. So with that being said, what are your thoughts? Have you watched The Current? I've watched it. I've definitely learned some things. I thought JPP being the guy that, rallied that locker room was tremendous. You kind of knew what to expect with some of these players, but, they had their ups and downs, of course. The Chicago game comes to mind with Vita Vea getting injured, but how important was it to get him back? And you saw in the last episode how important it was to that defensive line. The other thing that came out this week was that Shaq Barrett never considered any other offers but Tampa Bay. To me, that tells you everything you need to know about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this organization. Why go anywhere else when the grass isn't always greener on the other side? So with that being said, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. First edition on NSPN. Thanks a lot to everybody that tuned in. Thanks to my guest, Travis Failey of Rocket Sports and Entertainment, my Lightning insider, Dave Mishkin of the Lightning Radio, play-by-play announcer, of course, Denis Phillips of ABC Action News, and Blake Anthony of Sports Talk 49. So without further ado, late here on a Monday night, it feels like old times again. Do three things for me, guys, and keep on tuning in to the Sports Web, live on the Next Gen Sports Network, and I love St. Pete. Bring your passion, bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake. Have a great night.
Good show, Peter Blake. I appreciate you.
Stan Arthur here for the I Love St. Pete Facebook group. If you're a business owner looking to connect with tens of thousands of potential new local customers, you owe it to yourself to get enrolled in our Key Tag Rewards program. Since 2019, we've signed up more than 200 local merchants. Sponsor opportunities are available too, such as our group banner ad and even your own custom key tags. Just go to stpetekeytag.com, get enrolled, and get ready to get busy. stpetekeytag.com.
Tampa Bay Bucks Super Bowl 55 champ Shaq Barrett coming at you live at NSPN Next Gen Sports. Go like and follow NSPN for total coverage of all team and combat sports, live shows, plus exclusive player interviews and unprecedented sports content creation.
Aren't you loving life in Tampa Bay? Nothing like being defending Super Bowl champs, Stanley Cup champions, American League champions. This is Outkick. Join me every Sunday morning at 10. Let's talk our teams in the hottest sports market in the country. Never too early to talk Buccaneers or check in on all the teams in Tampa Bay. It will be your best hour of sports. The Outkick Show, powered by Guerrilla Marketing. Sunday mornings at 10 on 102.5 The Bone. Sports media has evolved. Introducing NSPN Next Gen Sports, your number one source for all team and combat sports. Live shows, breaking news, esports tournaments, and interactive sports content like never before. Like and follow NSPN on our Facebook page for your chance at this month's fan giveaway contest. And tune in every Sunday at noon for exclusive video access to my Outkick Show interview. NSPN Next Gen Sports. Outkick here. I have to tell you about my amazing pampered experience at Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. First of all, I love what she did with my hair, but it's the entire experience that truly sets her apart. You walk in and chances are she's playing your favorite music because she cares. She pours you your favorite adult beverage because she cares. It's gone from haircut to a truly relaxing time only at Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. Haircuts, men and women, full spa treatments, hair color. Get it all with Daniela. Check her out on Instagram at Daniela LaCorey or book her on the Booksy app at ladybarberdaniela.booksy.com. Tell her Outkick sent you and get $10 off your first service, plus neck and shoulder massage. Daniela LaCorey Styling Studio. Outkick here from my friends at Family Lawn, Pest, Handyman, and Housekeeping. I'm all about saving money and saving time, especially when it comes to maintaining my home. These people are 4-in-1. One provider for my lawn, Pest, Handyman, and Housekeeping. I don't have to call 4 different companies, receive 4 different estimates, have 4 different strangers come into my home and write 4 different checks. I simply call Roger and Paula at Family Lawn and Pest. Sign up for a year and leave the honeydews to them. Get a free estimate. Call 813-526-8111. That's 813-526-8111. Tell them Outkick sent you and get $250 off your first year or 20% off your first month. It's Family Lawn and Pest and so much more. Medical marijuana made easy. See if you pre-qualify for your Florida medical marijuana card free of charge, 100% risk, obligation, and judgment-free with Fast Track Cannabis Clinics of America. You're talking Tampa Bay's #1 choice for compassionate care with business professionals. Discreetly begin your road to relief by dialing 813-358-CARD or visit www.mycannabiscard.com. That's 813-358-2273. And make sure to tell them that Outkick sent you for $30 off new patient enrollment. Ask about military and senior discounts. Fast Track Cannabis Clinics of America. With uncertainty at an all-time high, securing what matters most has never been more important for your home or your office. Prevent disaster and make life easier. Try a security and home automation system from Alarm Engineers, Inc., Tampa's trusted leader for more than 30 years. State-of-the-art security systems, award-winning monitoring, and now full-spectrum smart home solutions. Alarm Engineers, Inc. has everything your home and office could possibly need and will work with any budget. Book a free security or smart home consultation today. Call 813-948-4000. That's 813-948-4000. And get your first month free by telling them Al Keck sent you. Alarm Engineers, Inc.